Good morning, dear students. Today we will continue the chapter reproduction in plants. Okay. So in the last class we have studied about asexual reproduction. How the asexual reproduction takes place from the vegetative parts of the plant. Okay. So these are the different ways of asexual reproduction we have discussed. That is vegetative propagation. From the vegetative parts such as root, stem and leaves, they lead to reproduction. That is, so they are cutted, they can be cut and they can be so grown. So that is the give rise to a new individual. That is one type of reproduction. And so here some animals such as this is a rose plant or hibiscus plant where we cut the stem and it can be grown into a new plant. In the same way, there are eyes in the stem, that is a potato stem. So these eyes, okay, so these eyes can be the portion where eye is present. So these can be cut and grown into a new individual. In the same way, ginger and turmeric. Okay, so like this, different types of asexual reproduction. So that is through the vegetative parts of the plant we have discussed. And bryophyllum is another plant which gives rise to a new individual from the leaves. In the same way, so we have discussed some microscopic organisms like yeast. Which is used to give the puffness to the bread. So this yeast is reproduced through budding. Okay, so extra outgrowth from any part of the organism that is called as a budding. And some other animals, some other organisms, microscopic organisms like Spirogyra. Spirogyra is reproduced through fragmentation. That is, in the nodal part of the Spirogyra, they split and so they form a new fragment. And another type of asexual reproduction is the spore formation. So where you can see in the bread molds and all. So this is the sporangia which contains numerous spores. Once they mature, they get burst out and they give into a new individual. Like that, so spore formation takes place in ferns. Okay, so these are the different ways of asexual reproduction we have discussed in the last class. So today, so we will discuss about the sexual reproduction. So what is sexual reproduction? What are the advantage of sexual reproduction over the asexual reproduction? So sexual reproduction means the reproduction of an organism, the reproduction in the organism through the reproductive parts of the organism, by using the reproductive organs and reproductive parts. Okay, so here two parents are involved. So mainly two parents are involved. So that is a male parent and a female parent. And also, so here the always variety, that is variety is there. So in a organism, so individual, because the characteristics of the male combines with the characteristics of the female, and always a new individual or so baby plant so will have both the characteristics of male and female plants. Okay, so like that it is very distinct from the asexual reproduction. Okay, so usually we are discussing about the reproduction in plants. So these plants, the reproductive part of the plant is mainly the flower, isn't it? Flower is the main reproductive part of the plant. So it is very colorful and attractive, isn't it? So flowers are very colorful and attractive, which is the reproductive part of the plant. Let us study the structure of the plant in detail. Okay, so here I took an example of hibiscus flower. Okay, so this hibiscus flower, it bears different colors of flowers, isn't it? Okay, some hibiscus flowers are pink, they bear pink, white, red. Okay, so with many petals, with some petals like that, there are variety in hibiscus flower. So I took the hibiscus flower. This is a stalk. Okay, this is the stalk which holds the whole flower. And so these are the sepal, green color portion which protects the ovary in the bud stage, that is called as a sepal. And this colorful part so is called as a petal. is called as a petal. And inside that reproductive parts are there. So this is the male reproductive part. Male reproductive part called stamen. Male reproductive part called stamen. This is the structure of stamen. This is the structure of stamen, male reproductive part. I took one stamen from here. So this is the male reproductive organ of the plant. Where here, so this is the stalk. This stalk portion is called as a filament, and this is bilobed structure. Bilobed structure which is having two lobes. So that exhibit the pollen grains. That exhibit the powdery yellow color structures called pollen grains. These pollen grains are usually tough coated. These pollen grains are usually tough coated, which contains the male germ cell. Which contains the male germ cell. This is the male reproductive part, and flowers have many male reproductive parts called stamens. But it has only one reproductive part. It has only one reproductive part. So that is carpel. That is carpel or pistil. Carpel, or it is also called as pistil. This female reproductive part also has some parts. So the outermost, that is the uppermost portion is called stigma, which is very sticky. You may feel by touching the flower, it is sticky. So which used to stick the pollen grains, which helps to stick the pollen grains. And the elongated narrow tube, so which connects the stigma and the ovary, is called as a style. The elongated tube which connects the stigma to the ovary is called as a style. Then the bulged portion, the bulged large portion is called as ovary, which contains an egg cell, and inside that ovule is present. This is the structure of female reproductive part, and this one is the structure of male reproductive part. Okay, now how they are involved in reproduction process? Mainly there are two types of flowers are there: bisexual flowers and unisexual flowers. Okay, so bisexual flowers and unisexual flowers. Some plants are there which bears both the sex organ. Some flowers are there in the plants which bears both the sex organs. For example, so hibiscus plant, it has both female and male reproductive part in it. ಒಂದೇ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೈಸೆಕ್ಷುವಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಬಟ್ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಪಪ್ಪಾಯ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್, ಮಸ್ಟರ್ಡ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್, ಸೊ ಆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಒನ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಒನ್ ಸೆಕ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ಗನ್, ಓನ್ಲಿ ಒನ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷುವಲ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಸೊ ಅಂಥ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸಿಗೆ ಯೂನಿಸೆಕ್ಷುವಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಮೇಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರೇ ಬೇರೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರೇ ಬೇರೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ತರ ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಬೈಸೆಕ್ಷುವಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್, ಸೊ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್ ಯೂನಿಸೆಕ್ಷುವಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ what happens when reproduction takes place? So this male reproductive part, they contain a powdery yellow structures called pollen grains. So this pollen grain is a tough layered so organ. So it contains a male gamete. It comes and falls on the stigma. That is, it transfer the pollen grains, the transfer of pollen grains from the male part to the female part of the same flower. If it takes place like this, it is called self-pollination. Pollination andreno? Transfer of pollen grains from the, so that is male reproductive organ, from the anther, so to the stigma of the female reproductive part, is called as pollination. In pollination, two types again: self-pollination and cross-pollination. If the transfer of pollen grains takes place, so from the anther of the same flower to the stigma of the same flower, then it is called as self-pollination. ಅಲ್ಲಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದೇ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕ್ರಿಯೆನೂ ನಡೆದು ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. But so here we can see So here we can see one flower is there. So here what happens? So it is a male flower. Okay, it is a self pollination. ಇಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಬಂದು ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿದ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಒಂದೇ ಗಿಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ಹೂವಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ಸ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಇದ್ರ ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿದ್ದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಗಿಡದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿದ್ದು ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So transfer of pollen grains from the pollen of the same plant to the stigma of the same flower, same plant, then it is called self pollination. If the transfer of pollen grains takes place from the pollen of the one flower to the pollen to the stigma of the another flower of the same plant or another flower of the another plant, then it is called as a cross pollination. Okay, so after pollination what happens? So self pollination or cross pollination ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ನಮಗಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ ಬಂದು ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ, ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ ಬಂದು ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ. ಇದು ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಇದ್ರೊಳಗಡೆ ಮೇಲ್ ಜರ್ಮ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಅದು ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಐ ಟೋಲ್ಡ್ ದಟ್ ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಕಿ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಕಿ, ಅಂಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ ಬಂದು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅಂಟ್ಕೊಂಡಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ದ ಪೋಲನ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್. ಒಂದು ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಟು ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ದ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ ಟು ದ ಓವ್ಯೂಲ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಪೋಲನ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಪೋಲನ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ ಅದ್ರ ಮೂಲಕ ಹೋಗಿ ಇಟ್ ಕಮ್ ಇನ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ಎಗ್ ಸೆಲ್. This ovary contains the egg cell. It come in contact with the egg cell. Egg cell ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು that is the fertilization ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಕರಿತೀವಿ? Fertilization. So when the male gamete, here they have shown a beautiful picture. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ ಬಂದು ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಮೇಲೆ, ಪೋಲನ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಪೋಲನ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗಿ ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಈ ಜರ್ಮ್ ಸೆಲ್, ಇದ್ರೊಳಗಿದ್ದ ಜರ್ಮ್ ಸೆಲ್ಲು ಒಳಗೋಗಿ ಎರಡು ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ so leads to the fertilization process. After fertilization, the product formed is called as the zygote. Okay, fertilization ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ zygote formation ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So once this zygote is formed, ಸೊ ಮೇಲ್ ಇತ್ತು, ಫಿಮೇಲ್ ಇತ್ತು, ಸೊ ಎರಡು ಕಂಬೈನ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಝೈಗೋಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ದ ಸೆಲ್ ಗೋ ಆನ್ ಡಿವೈಡ್ಸ್. ಸೆಲ್ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದೆನ್ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಇಸ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಡ್, ದೆನ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಪೆಟಲ್ಸ್ ಫಾಲ್ಸ್ and this becomes the fruit. Ovary becomes the fruit and ovule becomes the seed. Ovary fruit ಆಗಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ovule seed ಆಗಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So like this the ovary becomes the fruit and ovule becomes the seeds. Some seeds are there very hard coated like nuts. Okay, so hard coat will be there. Some seeds are there, so they have a that is outer, okay, fleshy, so fruit coat. Okay, so the dispersal of seeds are different in different plants. Okay, so some light weighted plants are there, some light weighted seeds, so they transfer through wind. Light weighted seeds are there, they disperse through wind. Dispersal, what is meant by dispersal, why it is necessary? Dispersal of seed means, so seed when ಮಾವಿನ ಹಣ್ಣಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ಓಟೆನ ಎಸಿತೀವಿ, isn't it? So ಆ ಓಟೆ ಎಸ್ದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, that germinates and develop into a new plant. So dispersal of seed is, so to continue the generation, to continue the next species, dispersal is very much essential, isn't it? So that is shifting of the seed in order to continue their generation, So it may be takes place through the wind, water, or through other animals. Okay, like this. Light weighted seeds ಏನೇನಿದೆ, they are dispersed through air, isn't it? So ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ heavy weight seeds ಏನೇನಿದೆ, they are dispersed through water, isn't it? So the hair like structures, ಈ ತರ seeds ಇರೋದು they stick to the body of the animals and when the animal moves, they fell there and they grow into a new plant. So like this, seeds of these are the seeds of drumstick and maple, and these are the hairy fruit of sunflower, and this is the hairy seed of madar, that is oak tree, and this is the seed of xanthium. So these are different kinds of seed which have different properties. So the seed dispersal is very much essential in order to continue the species. Okay. So here we can see in the diagram the seeds of drumstick, and this is the seed of maple tree, and this is hair-like structures. These are the seeds of sunflower, and this hairy seed of the madar or the oak tree, and this is the seed of xanthium. Like this, so different types of seeds are there. So there are some the coconut tree, the seed of coconut tree, that is coconut. So they dispersed through running water, and they go to that part of the river, and they develop into a tree there. Like that, so they once they dispersed from one place to another, and they germinate there under favorable condition. If favorable conditions are available there, they germinate there, and by using the food present in the embryo, the germination takes place and they develop into a baby plant, and then they grow into an adult tree. Okay. So like this, so reproduction, like this, sexual reproduction takes place in plants. Okay. So this is how the different types of reproduction takes place in different types of organisms. Okay. So in detail we have discussed sexual reproduction in plants. So about reproductive part, parts such as female reproductive parts and male reproductive parts, how the pollination takes place. Okay, in pollination, again self-pollination and cross-pollination takes place, and then fertilization takes place, that leads to the zygote, and then embryo formation takes place, and then seed and fruit are developed, and then that seed is undergo germination and develop into a new plant. Okay. So this is how the reproduction in plants, sexual reproduction in plants takes place. Okay, thank you dear students. Please read the textbook properly, go through the textbook, okay, and write the answers for the questions given by me. Okay, so thank you so much.